that. Well, and I think in route to success, discipline also, you already said it, comes with accountability. So you've got to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
And I think it helps to do it in front of a crowd, right? In front of other people, right? And a lot of times, you know, like if you're, say you're going to lose weight or whatever, it helps to post that on social media, or it helps to tell everybody around you, hey, I'm going to do this. Because then, you know, someone's going to ask you in 3 weeks, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
You know, it's like when we joined business, people used to always, hey, I remember this time, this one guy used to always say, hey, you made your millions yet, buddy? You know? And then like 3 years later, we were making 40, 50 grand a month. And I ran into that guy and he said that same thing to me and goes, hey, buddy, you made your millions? You made your millions yet?
I remember that.
I got made 40 grand last month. What'd you make? You know? And I loved it. It was so worth it to get to that point because it was accountability. He was holding me accountable. I didn't do it in spite of him. I'm so grateful for there were people like him because my natural personality is like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Like, I want to quit 1,000,000 times, but I'm going to do it just to prove that dude wrong. You know? Like, I can't quit and let him be right.
You almost have to, and we had that like an oh yeah list. Like I will show you how great I am.
Yep.
Like there's gonna be people, sadly, that hope you don't succeed.
Yeah.
And we had that list, like whether it's a written down list or in our head of people that we were gonna show them.
Yeah. Like we are good enough. We can do this. We do have the discipline. We are willing to hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
So anything else besides discipline and accountability? What else do you think causes people to maybe not succeed? So like, I think a lot of times in relationships, people will just go, oh yeah, that's his job or that's her job. Like one of the things that drives me crazy is when people say, oh, it's not my job.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so what?
Yeah.
Right? If it makes your life better. So I think, you know, when someone, you know, if you're not married yet, like who you choose to marry is gonna have the most impact on your future than anything. I mean, it will be the biggest deciding factor on your life is the person you choose to make your life partner, right?
Right.
So what are some other things you think that, you know, in I guess that general area of what people make decisions that cause failure, you know?
Well, that was, I mean, if you think about it, both of us, when we were young, we were attracted to each other because of our ambition.
Yep.
Both of us had. And that's what I looked for. Like when I was dating and I wanted somebody that wanted more out of life, you know, wasn't like, oh, you know, I'm just going to go to college and have this job. And I wanted somebody that wanted to do big things with their lives. And that's why when I found you, you were exactly what I was looking for. But like you said, your spouse will be the biggest determinant. And it's kind of sad when you do see, you know, one spouse wants it so bad, but the other spouse just holds them down. They're like an anchor, you know, because they're not willing to get uncomfortable. They're not. So yeah, if you're not married, you really need to look at those things when you're dating or who you're dating, because that will become your reality unless you can change them, which I mean, not likely you can change somebody because it's who they are. You can't
change someone else. They have to decide to
change themselves. Right.
I always say it's like trying to push a wet noodle. If you're trying to change someone else, it's like pushing a wet noodle. It just don't go anywhere, right? They've got to make a decision. It's like,
and us together, we were excited to work hard and we were very ambitious to do something big with our lives. Like we both we had big goals and dreams.
Yeah. So when you see these couples, right, we see it a lot of times where one of them's really ambitious and one of them's not, or one of them says they're ambitious and says they're doing all this stuff, and then the spouse is like, no, they're not. They're not doing what they say they're doing, or they don't, and it causes these challenges. You know, my suggestion is always like, hey, if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
You know, like I've always been that person where when I made a commitment in front of a crowd, it wasn't just the crowd I was trying to fulfill that commitment for, but it was also you. Like I wanted you to see me say, hey, he said he was going to do this. I already know he's going to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and your spouse knows that like, oh, he's a fraud.
Yeah.
Like he never does or she never does what she says she's going to do. And I always feel that way too. Like if I say I'm going to do something, I have to do it not only for myself, but for my spouse, because more so for my spouse and myself than everybody else around me, because I have to be a woman of my word. And that, I feel like to us, that's so important, and probably why we won in business, because we said we were going to do it. So we did it. Yeah. And we weren't going to let anything else
get in the way of doing what we said we were going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we already had come to an agreement. This is what we wanted, and we were both going to play our part. So I think it's great advice. Like if there's, a partnership listening to this right now and one of you is on board and the other one's not, you're trying to figure out, what do I do? Say you're going to go do it and do it. And then a lot of times when you do that, your spouse is going to go, oh my gosh, they're actually doing what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
And it breeds trust, right?
Well, and a lot of times early on, and because I wasn't super on board early on, but you said you were going to do it and you were doing it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of husbands and wives, like if the wife doesn't support you because they watch their spouse say they're going to do it, and then they take time off, or they go party, or they are okay with and like you always used to say, your spouse is testing you.
Yeah.
Hey, you never said yes to anything like, oh, hey, I have a family reunion. Can we go? You were like, nope. Family pictures. Nope. I have this. Nope. And so a lot of times your spouse wants to test you to see if you'll cave.
Are you telling me you were testing me all those years?
Always. I was like, is he gonna cave? But I think
probably not even, you really probably were, but I don't think you were actually aware of it at that point.
Right.
But I was just so obsessed about like, hey, I'm going to go win.
Well, and then I believed in you, and I believed in it, and I believed we were going to win because I saw your commitment.
Yeah.
That nothing, no matter what, you weren't wavering.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people say, oh, I can't get my spouse on board. But when they have something and you waver, is that a word?
Yeah.
Waver. They go, oh, yep, he's not that serious.
Yeah.
And you see that like, oh, well, he'll take a day off.
Yep.
So he's not that serious. And then, but if you're committed and 100% in, then eventually they go, dang, like and there was a point in our relationship, I felt like I'm either going with you and I'm getting on board 100%, or I'm getting left behind and we're no longer going to be together.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling that really early on. I think we were still dating.
Yeah.
That I either was going in, diving in, and doing all the things it took to be successful, or else, I needed to go find a different life.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. I think it's great advice. Last thing before we go today, I wanted to cover this because I think it's important. We kind of already touched on it, but when we talk about, we see a lot of people make these mistakes with discipline financially.
Yeah.
I know for me, we always kind of had these different financial blueprints, right? Where naturally I always wanted to save and invest and get financially independent, get financially free. And I grew up in this poverty-stricken situation, really. And so I kind of had this like, hey, I got to hold on to everything mentality. Yeah. And you grew up different. Yeah. And which shout out to your mom for being a single mom and raising you with that mindset where you had this mindset of abundance, you know? And so you kind of always looked at like, hey, we're making money. We're always going to make more money. Yeah. And I was just obsessed about saving and investing our money. For example, for those of you guys listening, when we were making about $20,000 or $30,000 a month, we were only paying $600 a month, $625 a month for a little like townhouse condo, apartment kind of thing, right? And I didn't want to move out of that. In fact, I was driving a Nissan Altima. Mm-hmm. You were driving a Mazda 6 that you had still in high school. So we were making $20,000-$30,000 a month. We hadn't bought new cars. Yeah. We were living in a $600 a month condo, which probably today would be $1,000 a month or whatever, but it was like a POS.
It's probably like $1,500,
babe. Maybe something like that. Yeah. And it wasn't a great place to live. We had no furniture. Like we didn't have a couch. Nope. We had one chair in our house and it was like a fold out camping chair. Right? I'm telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
And we're making $20,000-$30,000 a month. Yep. And you would get so fired up because I just wanted to save and invest our money. To me, every dollar we made was an opportunity to save and invest it and get free for our future. And I think for you, sometimes it was like you maybe felt like I was always making you sacrifice. But then, finally, when we did move into a house, we were making about $40,000 a month-ish, $40,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And it was $1,125 a month. And I did not want to pay $1,100 a month because to me, it was like an extra $500 a month that we could save and invest. Yeah. Even though we doubled our income. And then, we get financially independent, and then we bought, you bought a house in Vegas. I wasn't even there, right? That's a whole nother story, right? So this is how cheap I was. I was so mad.
Oh, yeah.
And because I didn't want to spend the money. I was just so cheap, right?
Yeah.
So I was I think still am, mega disciplined financially. And we've had nice stuff, right? We've lived in big houses, we've bought incredible cars, we've traveled around the world, and, luxury watches and handbags and shoes. And we've done all of those things, but we have been very, very, very financially disciplined.
Yeah.